Okay, we are recording Weekday Somatics 85. No, it's not 85. It's like 17 or 16 or 18 or somewhere in that range. I'm gonna delete that weird compulsion to number these things or to announce the number. So we're going to isn't that cool that that's a possibility that we all now know that we can do that? Isn't it odd that I didn't choose to do that before now? In all seriousness, we all have, every one of us who are here, who's been participating in this, you have the knowledge and the experience to simply delete, just to delete what you don't want, to delete what doesn't uh, what is not in service of what you really desire, right? So I can look honestly and I can see this. It's a small thing, okay? Obviously it's a very small thing, but this compulsion to number and announce the number, just as an example, I can take a look and I can see why does that serve my true desire. So my true desire, maybe I need to get clear on that. Maybe I am clear on that, maybe I'm not clear on that. But the opportunity presents itself here and now whenever there's some compulsion that arises, for me to observe that and to look sincerely, not to my mind, not to thought stream, not to memory, but to something that's very consistent, that's effortless, that's present now, and see, does this compulsion, is the compulsion in service of that which is consistent, that thread that brings all of my experience together, that deeper desire, the desire for authenticity, for reality, for peace, clarity, okayness, whatever we want to call it, it doesn't matter. But I sincerely believe all of us can recognize that to some degree for ourselves right now. And then the simple practice, if you want to call it that, is just to observe, is this compulsion in service to that? Does this compulsion actually express something truthful, something real, something authentic? Does this compulsion express peace? Does this compulsion express who I really am? And if it's obvious that this compulsion does not serve that, then I have this new possibility of non-indulgence. How do I not indulge? So this is the question that has it certainly puzzled me for a long time, and I believe I believe that it puzzles almost everybody to such a degree that I can't know this because I can't know other people's experience, but I can observe their behavior. I can observe the state of the world. And it certainly appears that this puzzles almost everybody to the extent that most people don't even know, don't even have any clue that there's a possibility of something different than their habit. They don't even know that it's possible to discover presently something that is far more powerful, far more powerful. I mean, so vastly far more powerful that all of my habits are like nothing. They're like nothing in comparison. So, but each of us here, we recognize that to some degree. I know each of you recognizes that to some degree. And I'm certain of this, which I'm about to say, which is that for me in my life, it's a complete miracle. It's a complete miracle. I couldn't have dreamed of this possibility because it's outside of the dream. It's completely outside of that whole conceptual reality. But it's real, and each of us recognizes that. So we actually have this possibility, and we know how to do it. How? How do we delete the compulsion that's not in alignment with what it is that is true and authentic and real? If, or put it more simply, if the compulsion is unpleasant, okay, just in simple terms, if it's unpleasant, why indulge it? The only reason to indulge it is if we don't recognize what it is and that another possibility exists. But each of us has now this ability to recognize what the compulsion actually is. We can recognize its true nature. And in so doing, that's it. That's the entirety of the process. That's the whole practice. Just recognize the actual nature of it. In the recognition, of course, I'm not going to indulge it. It's the same thing. To recognize is non-indulgence. Non-indulgence is recognition. So we can look to see what is the actual nature of this compulsion. Is it an external force that actually can make me do it? Does anything make me argue? Does anything make me try to be right? Does anything make me unhappy? Does anything, this is a dangerous one, does anything cause pain for me? Can anything produce my pain? We can look. So let's do that now. Let's find a starting posture that we can probably inhabit consciously for the next 20 to 30 minutes. If possible, I would encourage you to try this sitting, but as usual, if that's inappropriate for you, only you can know that, and only you can take responsibility for being gentle. Gentleness is very important. There's a fine line between gentleness and coddling your habits. So you can be aware of that distinction for yourself. Are you chasing after comfort, thinking that that's going to help you, or can you find this fine line between comfort and discomfort, where you're not seeking more comfort. You're not seeking to avoid discomfort, but you're not you're not really moving in any way. And that's really the key for this exploration. And really the essence of the exploration always, the inquiry always is exactly that, to discover, is it possible for me to be aware of stillness and to actually recognize myself as that stillness, to recognize myself so completely aligned with that stillness that there's no disturbance, and then I can recognize that that's all that is, that's all that I am. There's nothing else, because I'm observing everything that seems to be not that, and in that observation it subsides and there's just rest. So then I can really get clear on the actual nature of the experience. So we'll take a few minutes to see if we can really just explore that. Now that's maybe a very simple practice, and at the same time it's a very advanced practice, because I don't find that I don't find an end to this inquiry. Maybe there is an end. I haven't found it yet. So to maybe make it a little, maybe you're wondering what the hell I'm talking about. So let me spell that out a little bit. So we're just still. We're inhabiting this posture, whatever it is. You could be sitting. That's my suggestion, but you could also be lying down. You could be lounging. You could be whatever. You could be lying on your back, lying on your side, lying on your stomach. You could be upside down. You could, and if you're really super advanced, you could be standing on your head. And maybe some of you laugh. I don't know. I've got my eyes closed, so I can't see, but that it's only half a joke. Maybe we could actually discover that same stillness while standing on our head. I'll tell you a short story about that momentarily, but I'll tell you that story as we're practicing this together. So let me clarify the instruction a little bit more. So we're in this posture and we're exploring stillness. So this is not a conceptual exploration. This is a very practical exploration, and it's a somatic exploration. So we're feeling into stillness. We're exploring, what is it that I'm doing that is effortful? How am I straining? Now, the way that I can become aware of that is simply to observe whatever comes into my awareness in terms of sensation. And of course, secondarily, so okay. So the primary focus that I'm suggesting for us is a somatic focus, a pure somatic focus. Now you may not know what that means. I'm not even sure I know exactly what that means. I've been really taking a closer look at what that means. I would say that it's an interface between all of these seemingly disparate fields of experience, thought, memory, sensation. The invitation is just to be aware of how it is that I produce the discomfort, the strain, the effort, the squeezing, the restriction, the trying. How it is that I'm actually literally getting in my own way. So there's a natural flow, ebb and flow, as long as we're breathing. So how is it that I'm interfering by effort, by strain, by tension, by contraction, by gripping, by numbness, by distraction? so that I'm actually, I'm interfering with that smooth ebb and flow of the natural breath, the smooth natural pulsation of the heart, the smooth natural pulsation of the nervous system. How is it that I'm interfering with that? Pressing the tongue somewhere in my mouth, maybe squeezing around the eyes, gripping in the back of the neck, clenching in the throat. Told you I'd tell you a story, but I've forgotten. So that's just as well. Oh yeah, Moshe Feldenkrais. Uh, Moshe Feldenkrais. You may or may not know of the name. It doesn't really matter. He was a guy. He uh, lived in Israel, and the uh, must have been. I think it was. I think now I might be mistaken. I think it was a man named Ben Gurion, who was a political leader who had a lot of. He was older rather than younger. You can imagine whatever that means. And he was uh, the story goes he had been so intensely focused on political affairs that he had really disregarded his body. He was not in a good state. Moshe worked with Ben Gurion, and Ben Gurion said, what I'd really like to do is stand on my head. No joke. So Moshe Feldenkrais said, well, let's do it. So they explored this possibility, and lo and behold, he was able to stand on his head. So we could find the same stillness while standing on our head. It's an actual possibility. But you don't need to stand on your head. You could just be sitting. Now, if you really tune into this stillness in this manner that I'm describing, so you're not seeking for it. You're not looking around for it. You're not saying, is it over there? Is it over there? Is it in this memory? Is it in this thought? Is it in this process? What about that? What about that kind of process that I learned about from that book? Maybe I should do that. Maybe it's this kind of meditation that I should do. Maybe I should focus on the breath. Maybe I should count the breath. Maybe I should, oh, no, I got all these things I should be worrying about. It's not that. That's what we're accustomed to. This process that I'm describing is just to gently remain aware of the stillness that's here, right at the core, that's effortless. Now, you may not be comfortable with that stillness, or you may. But in any case, to some degree, you are aware of it. You may not yet fully acknowledge that, but to some degree, you are aware of it. And this practice of inquiry that I'm guiding us in right now is simply to tune into that without seeking for it. We're not looking for it somewhere. We're actually choosing, at least for this moment, to trust in the possibility that it is here and that it is effortless and that it is the core of who we are. and that we can actually recognize that directly now, not in some future, but now we can actually recognize that. We can turn our attention to recognize that now, and we can then whittle away all that is not that, all that is not true. And we do that simply by resting, attuning to that stillness in whatever way we're capable of doing that, and then just noticing every impulse that arises that says move, wiggle the nose, squeeze the eyes, push the tongue around. Start to really observe. You'll notice these things. You'll notice how it is that you have compulsions, probably of playing with your tongue, pushing it around in different places in your mouth, squeezing the throat, as I just demonstrated, not that anybody was watching, of course, swallowing compulsively. That's an interesting one. It's a really interesting one. So start to explore that. What if you don't indulge the habit of swallowing? Notice I didn't say don't swallow. You are free to swallow. You're free to swallow compulsively or by choice. You're free to swallow because it's useful, or you're free to swallow even if it's not useful. But can you become aware directly, in a very direct way? Can you become aware? And I'm suggesting you can. Can you become aware of the distinction between swallowing because it's useful, pleasurable, conscious, or compulsive swallowing, habits of swallowing, even when it's not useful, even when it's not needed? Can you become aware of how it is that the breath, the natural breath, expands the body, lifts the body, allows the body to be gently, effortlessly buoyant? And then how it is that you habitually contract the body, and you call that contraction rest. You call that contraction comfortable. You call that contraction whatever you call it yourself. So let's explore not doing that. Notice what's happening in the hands. Are the hands doing anything that is not necessary? What about the elbows? It's always an interesting one. Why are the elbows doing something? Do they need to be doing anything? Maybe we can start to notice the habits of unnecessary strain in all of these places that we kind of knew all along that we were doing something there because it hurt. It was uncomfortable. It was strenuous. We could never get it right, but we can actually start to become consciously aware of it. And we can start to become consciously aware of the distinction between effort and rest. It's such a, it's a funny distinction because we might think that it's obvious, the distinction between effort and rest. But if we really start to look closely, we realize maybe that we're not as clear as we thought we were. And what I mean by that is, if you don't know, try to allow your tongue to rest. And just allow the tongue to rest completely at rest. Let's do that together for the next short while. I'll shut up as we do that. So that was a fairly short time, but perhaps in that time you were able to notice multiple compulsions to move the tongue. And if so, isn't that curious? And perhaps you also noticed that you weren't as clear as you might have thought about what it actually means to rest. If we don't know how to allow the tongue to remain at rest, if we're not super clear on that, imagine what else we don't have clarity about. What about the right shoulder? Do you know how to let the right shoulder rest completely? Do you know how to let the left eyeball rest completely? And of course, you could answer that from mechanical mind, which is going to say either yes or no, or I don't know. But we can, instead of trying to answer that from mechanical mind, we can actually look and discover what's true. Now, we don't want to see what's true because what's true flies in the face of our idea of ourself. So the idea of myself is I know or I don't know. I can or I can't. But the actual present reality doesn't fit into that paradigm. The actual present reality is I'm observing, I'm watching, and it goes beyond I don't know. It's so completely unknown. There's not even a possibility. This isn't in that paradigm of I know or I don't know or but I could know. This is completely beyond that. This is so completely unknowable that I am putting myself into this position where I have to actually recognize what is beyond that paradigm. I'm just observing to see what is this. I don't know. I don't know how to allow the right shoulder to be completely at rest. So let me just observe what's actually happening. The mechanical mind wants to get involved. It says, well, maybe I should do this. Maybe I should move the shoulder this way. Maybe I should lift the shoulder. Maybe I should pull it down. Maybe I should pull it out. Maybe it should go forward. Maybe it should go backward. Maybe it should go forward and up. Maybe it should go backward and down. Maybe I should spin it around a bunch of times. Then maybe I'd know. Oh, but maybe I'm tilted sideways, and then maybe I don't know. Maybe then I need to tilt to the side and then spin it around. That's what the mechanical mind will just keep doing that. But there are infinite permutations. So it will just keep going and going and going, and you'll never get it right. You'll never figure it out that way. We've all tried. It doesn't work. So this other possibility, it's a distinctly different possibility, completely outside of that paradigm, simply to observe, to notice, to get really clear on the actual difference between rest and effort. And you can perhaps start to see that everything that the mechanical mind proposes is effort. But what is actually here presently is rest. You can't know what that rest is. You can't. You can't, not with the mechanical mind. But you can see, perhaps you can observe in your own actual direct experience all of these impulses trying, the strain to try and get hold of yourself, to try and, well, that's it, isn't it? To try and get hold of yourself. Well, isn't it all this gripping, all this contraction, all this armoring? It's to get hold of yourself, to know who you are. But this practice, this inquiry is revealing the total futility of that. I'll never get hold of myself. I'll never do that. It's a total impossibility, but there's something truly fresh that's available here and now. And all we have to do is be still. Well, I certainly had in mind a totally different direction for this today. This was all meant to be just preliminary. And that and that in and of itself is such a beautiful lesson. I think I know, I think I can predict, I think I have some power to coerce this external reality to produce the circumstances that I think I need in order to be okay. So I think that I have power to coerce the external world in order to produce the circumstances so that I can say, look what I did. I succeeded. Now I can rest. Now I can rest because I succeeded. Now I'm safe. Now I've got hold of myself. Everybody agrees what a big success I am. Now I'm okay because everybody agrees. Now I'm okay because I've got enough money. Now I'm okay because everybody around me is smiling. Now I'm okay because all that terrible noise that was bothering me is finally stopped. And so now I can rest. Finally gotten all of those circumstances corrected. I finally forced my shoulder into the right position, and I'll just keep it there. Now I can rest. Finally forced my eyes to stop squeezing. Now I can rest. So this inquiry exposes all of the lies if we allow it, because what this offers us is something so direct, so clear, and so authentically powerful, really, really authentically powerful, that we don't actually need anything else. And believe me, I know I know that can raise objections. I really do. I understand. Because like I said, I came here today, I sat down with an idea of a direction. I thought, this is what I thought we were going to do something different. And I thought that something different was going to be really good. I thought that was going to be really, really amazing. So when I look at the time and then I recognize, oh, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that today. So now I have this, I'm riding that wave. And that's what I'm inviting you to. That's why I'm describing this, to ride that wave that is the edge between comfort and discomfort. It's truth telling. It's real. It's to see the mechanical habit reasserting itself. I've got to get it right. I need approval. I need to fix myself. I need to figure it out. I need to do all these things. And then when I've succeeded in all of that and all the circumstances are correct according to my idea, then I'll be okay. Then I can rest. And this exposes those lies, because if we really look, we start to get clearer on the actual difference between rest and effort. And we can start to see that indulging all of those habits of mechanical mind, all of the attempts to fix it, to secure it, to get somewhere, all of those habits are actually something that we do. They're us indulging something. We do that through effort. We do that through strain. We do that by energizing these old pathways. And they're ancient. I'm convinced that these are ancient pathways. I look, as I say, into the world and I see, because sometimes I think, God, I must be crazy. Surely everybody knows it. It's so simple. It's so obvious what I'm talking about, what I'm pointing to. So obvious, so simple. Nobody needs to fight. Nobody needs to argue. Nobody needs to worry. Nobody needs to fear. Nobody needs to suffer. It's so obvious. The answer is so clear. But I look in the world and I look at my own actual experience and I see, oh, but it's not. It's obvious when it is, but it's not when it's not. Most of us, most of the time, don't recognize this simple, obvious clarity that I don't need to indulge any of those habits. I don't need to move from this stillness. So I've had my eyes closed, and if you've had your eyes closed, then please keep them closed. But begin to explore the possibility of opening your eyes. And if your eyes have been open, that's okay. But you can also explore the same basic essence, which is to observe how it is that I transition what the actual nature of transition is, what's really happening, what are my habits of transition. Maybe I can start to be aware of the suddenness and violence of my habitual state changes, and how there's another possibility to remain aware of this thread that runs through all experience. It's a thread that we are touching upon, recognizing, getting clearer on. It's a thread of effortlessness. It's a thread of stillness, and it's palpable. It's real. This is not an intellectual exercise. So slowly, if your eyes are closed, slowly begin to explore opening the eyes and see if you can do so while remaining aware of this thread of stillness so that you don't indulge your habit of suddenness, so that you can maybe, and I'll just propose this, I think it's pretty exciting. Maybe you could start to recognize that thread always, with eyes closed or eyes open, whether the circumstances are what you think they should be or the circumstances are challenging what you think should be. Take your time. There's no rush, really. You have as much time as you need. I am going to end the recording. For those who are here live, we'll stay on for the Q&A. And for anybody who's watching the recording, thanks for joining. Bye for now.